Hey, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at in the world. My name is Eric Mahaly. I'm the Director of Technical Services for Launch Tech USA. I want to thank you. I want to welcome you to today's training. Um, I hope that you get something out of this. A couple things that I want to touch on is very first, we have a poll today, and I'd love to get your feedback on what you'd like to see in future programming. I'm sorry, future training. Be sure to answer that because we're going to use, what you guys want to see to schedule some of the next training. Obviously today we're going to talk about scan tools, and scan tools certainly have a lot of things, but there's some other products that we make, thermal imagers. They have a huge place. I used one yesterday to find a parasitic draw. We can use them to find lots of problems in the cars, stuck brake calipers, things like that. And then, of course, module programming, which is a big thing. We have an agreement with a company called Aztec, which I'll touch on later. And then TPMS. We've recently come out with a lot of new TPMS tools, and TPMS is making a lot of changes. So if you want to see about that, please take time to answer that question. So if you have any questions, right, uh, please go ahead and put them in the chat box, right? So if anything pops up during the video, we're unable to stop the video. If it's a question I can answer at that time, I will. Maybe if it's something I think I should address at the end of the video, I'll address it then. So I want to go ahead and introduce today's presenter on video, Mr. Tom Rake, who is ABI's Director of Training. We'll go ahead and get into the video now. So again, any questions, put them in the chat. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tom Rake, and hey, we got a special guest today. It's the X-431 Throttle 5 from Launch. It's their new scan tool, and we're not going to do a whole class on this thing, but I wanted to show you some of the things that you see in here that are kind of neat and work well. So we got the services of a 2024 Ford Expedition here. This will do up to a 2025. But it stays pretty current, so that's good. Now, anytime you do use your scan tool, make sure you have the latest software updates in it because they change pretty regularly. When the OEM changes an update, of course, a company like Launch with an OEM-based type scan tool is going to go ahead and want to update their package also. So you always want to work on a vehicle, especially a problem child vehicle, with the latest update you have. You know, on this thing, it's really quick and easy, so this thing works well now. Hey, just to give you an idea, a quick overview, there's some new things here, like there's a liner that goes with this. Of course, you've got the good ADAS stuff. You know, you've heard of the term AI, artificial intelligence. That's coming to this tool here as we speak also, so there's a lot of new stuff here. But I wanted to show you some of the OEM capacities that this tool does have, and we picked a Ford because, hey, it was what the rental company had available. So bottom line is you'll see the same type of neat OEM type software operations and such, even on GMs, Toyotas, etc. So it's kind of neat. So let's get started. You'll notice that the tablet is obviously a bit different. It's been updated. It's a little bit quicker. It's got memory, etc. increases and such. But the Smart Link has also been changed. Now remember, this particular tablet hooks up to the car wirelessly. So this plugs into the car and you can take the scan tool wherever you want to go ahead and do your diagnostics. So we're going to go ahead now, we're going to actually hook up to this vehicle and show you some of the other things that are here. Okay, hey, it's Tom. We're back again and we're doing some behind the wheel diagnostics. Now, you don't want to do this driving down the road. We're just doing this in the bay, of course. We're going to show you a way to handle intermittence and such with this tool, though, driving down the road. Tool doesn't have to be up there. It can be on the seat, and it works extremely well. We'll get to that in just a few, but let's get through some other things first. First things first, one of the nicest things about this tool is we can do a network test on here. If you take a look at the screen that shows all the different computers on this vehicle, there's a host of computers on here, and if you notice there's a log up top that says normal, abnormal, scanned, and not equipped. So this will tell us what we have in this case on ADAS and all sorts of different systems. So let's go through the test and show you how quickly. I know you've probably been involved with some scan tools that did a test similar to this, and it took a long time. It took so long that you never used it after the first time. So I want to show you, we're going to do a high-speed scan on this. I'm going to touch the high-speed scan button, as you can see, and you'll notice how quickly it goes ahead and goes through all of the modules. So any module in green, you see there's a bunch in green, check out good. And then basically if you do have a DTC in a module, you'll get a red, and you'll also get how many trouble codes that the module has. So this thing is equipped with all the modules that you see here. It's limited, so it's got a lot of different modules, and it only has one DTC, and that's in the instrument panel. So we can get a look at that real quickly. I'm just going to touch IPC, of course, and there it is. We had ignition switch concern. I put that in there just so you could see a trouble code, so you can see how it works. Now, if you see the block that says X-431 fixed, we're not going to be able to go here because we only have a certain amount of time for this program, but you can get back with us in some other training programs. That is a complete database on vehicle repair, so we can get everything from torque specs to pretty much diagnostic procedures, trouble code procedures, etc., just by clicking on it. So not only does it give us the DTC, it gives us a path right to our manual, identifies in that online manual exactly what procedures to follow. It takes us in there for this particular vehicle. There's no picking a vehicle, a year, or anything. It automatically populates, which I think is a heck of a time saver. If you want a wiring diagram, you just go to X31 Fix and you're right there. So it's rather slick. So I'm going to touch anywhere else on here real quickly and get out of that screen. So this screen is really worthwhile if you have any kind of an issue. Now remember, we talked about having a problem with the CAN bus. That'll show us that we have a problem, and that will be affirmed here. Anytime I do a test on a vehicle, I like having at least 2 or 3 tests that show that I've got a given problem. Then I can be pretty assured that that's my problem. So this is a test that you should never skip. Now some people think, well, this takes time because they remember their old scan tool, but hey, you got these newer vehicles and such, and you've got this scan tool, it works pretty quickly. So we're done with that for now, but let's go a little different place, and I'm going to go ahead right now to system list. So we're going to go to system list in this particular case. This lists all the computers. So if you want to get to a computer quickly, you could go here. It's very easy to do, so it's not an issue. If you want to go back to system topology, there it is, not a problem. And there's also something called common functions, which is new now. We're going to skip over one of the selections that you see there. It's multi-system data stream. That is the neatest thing. Not all vehicles right now are going to support that because of the way they communicate like an older vehicle, but we're going to be able to do a lot with that on newer vehicles. We're not going to cover that today, but that's something you want to definitely look into also, or look at. So I'm going to go right now to common functions. This is a great shortcut to get to all the special functions, and we'll show you some of the functions. Now, just to give you an idea, the first one I want to go to is one that I've got about 12 calls on in the last week, and that's a Ford that the window goes up and then it comes down about halfway, and that's it. So it's lost its relearn. Someone put a new regulator in there, a new motor in there, whatever it was, and they didn't go through the calibration procedure. So I want to show you how that works real simply. Now I've got the window down right now, so the window's open. So I'm going to do the driver's side power door window, not the passenger side, I should say. So I'm going to tap on driver's side power window. So here we go. It's going to download the program. Now keep in mind, if you're doing advanced features, just like on the factory Ford tools, you need to be hooked online because you need to make sure you can get to the cloud, get to the server at launch, because there's certain things you're going to need to be able to do and get to. So it's going to ask me now, do I want to do the window position learning routine? Yes, I do, because my window doesn't stop where it should. I can't close the window. So we got to learn the top limit of the window and the bottom limit, so I'm going to hit yes. When I hit yes, it kind of gives me an idea what happens with the routine. Do you want to continue? Yes, I do. Turn ignition to the on position, position 2. So I'm going to shut the vehicle down. We're on right now totally. So I'm just going to turn the key on. And if I have my foot on the brake pedal, of course, it's going to restart. So make sure you have your foot off the brake pedal like I do now. I'm going to hit the button. So powered up, we're going to hit OK. It's going to tell us in progress. Now, next thing it has us do is start the engine. Now, always follow what the launch scan tool tells you to do. If you don't follow it, you won't go through the correct reset procedure in a Ford computer, and it may not work. And that's your fault if you don't read the screen and do what it tells you. So follow what the screen says exactly. So it tells me now to get the engine running, so I'm going to put my foot on the brake, hit the button, start the vehicle up, and I'm going to hit OK. So here's OK. Okay, it says wait 9 seconds, 8 seconds. It's going to go through a countdown because it's initializing. Now, if you watch the window over here, right now the window's down because I had it down. Okay, so it's going to show in progress basically. So it's communicating with the computer that's in a door right now. So it's getting it set up. Now notice the window's traveling upward. It tells me wait 39 seconds. The window's all the way up. Now the window travels all the way down. Now it's going to go ahead and record in the Ford computer where the stops are at the top and the bottom. So that's going to take about 29 seconds roughly for the Ford computer to learn it. And what it's going through right now is storing that in the information in the computer. Procedure completed successfully. Now my window is going to work as it should. So it's that simple to go ahead and correct a window issue like that. Scantle has to, of course, have it in it, but it's that easy. So let's get into the next thing we want to look at. Okay, we all know that Ford has a few misfires as the vehicle gets older. We also know that sometimes we have engine damage. You know, we could have a problem with the engine itself, have a cylinder problem, etc. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go through a relative compression check. So as you know, the OEM Ford tool has a relative compression check. So does the launch Throttle 5. So what I'm going to do is tap on compress, and I show relative compression check. If you notice on your screen, I'm going to tap on relative compression check. It's going to go ahead and download the program, kind of very similar to the OE Ford tool, the FDRS in this case. Set the ignition state to key on, so I'm going to set the key on. Won't hit the brake and turn the switch on. I'm good, so I'm going to hit OK. And here we go. It says relative compression check, apply the park brake, read the instructions like I said. If you don't follow the instructions, the Ford computer may not allow the test. It has nothing to do with the launch scan tool. It has to do with you not completing the test correctly. So it tells me to fully depress the accelerator pedal to the floor and hold it. Do not press OK until all the above conditions are met. So I'm going to make sure all the above conditions are met. Here we go. Throttles to the floor. It's going to give me a self-check here. Is the key on engine off in range? It says in range. Battery check. Is it in range? Battery voltage is good, yes. Then it's going to give me the idea here that I'm going to go ahead and hold my foot on the brake in 10 seconds. Ten seconds is a long time when you're waiting. Okay, so we're done. 10 seconds. Now, I didn't interrupt anything or mess anything up, so you can see what this engine is really like here. You need to make sure that if you ever have a failure on a test, that you ensure that you did it correctly. And that would be no matter what scan tool you're using, the OE tool or the launch, hey, you work it from there. So if you notice, the relative compression on this particular vehicle is very, very, very good. So we're at 0% difference from cylinder to cylinder basically here. It's looking good. Also gives us the average cranking RPM. Remember, if you see a cranking RPM at 400, you probably have all the cylinders that are weak because that shouldn't be cranking at 400. Average is somewhere between 2 and 3 depending on the battery condition and which engine's in there, of course. Remember, a turbocharged engine usually has lower compression. We go ahead and get more air and fuel in the cylinder using the turbo, so the base compression is usually less. So those engines tend to crank at a little higher RPM. If this was a non-turbocharged V6, instead of turbocharged like it is, the cranking RPM would probably be more about 240 or so. So that's a difference. A lot of people think because it's got a turbo, it's going to take more to crank. It does not. Compression ratio on turbo vehicles are statistically lower, so we can go ahead and introduce a bunch of boost into it without having issues. Okay, so there's your relative compression test. Now, to go along with that, this is not the first test I'd run. If you have a failure in a cylinder or misfire, that's why I'd go to this test. Make sure you run it correct. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go actually to the engine power balance test. So I'm going to tap on ENGPBM. Here we go. Okay, now this test is awesome anymore. It used to be great. It's now awesome. I'll tell you why in just a minute. So I'm going to hit power balance. We hit power balance. It's going to download just like the FDRS factory tool. And if you notice, it gives us all the information on it, okay? And it tells us here that we can now also place the engine under load by putting the transmission in gear. Now, the nice thing is, too, we can also accelerate the engine and hold it at a steady point. If you have a misfire at idle, you can duplicate it at idle. If you have a misfire at 1,400 RPM, we're going to show you, you can go ahead and duplicate basically that condition to see if you're getting a misfire or not and tell what cylinder it's misfiring on. So this test is your go-to test on any Ford that has a misfire. So let's go ahead and handle it, okay? I'm going to go ahead and start the vehicle. Here we go, okay. Okay, we're loading the test up now. There's your test. If you notice, you've got a graph. This graph is clearable, okay? If you had a misfire in there, you'd of course see the one cylinder go ahead and show a problem. I just glitched the throttle so you can see what happens. Now, if you notice, this is a graph and we're looking about 10 RPM. You know, it looks like the graph moves up and down quite a bit, but it really doesn't. It's about a 10 RPM swing. They want it within that 25, so it's not a problem. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually put this thing in reverse. Why reverse? Well, my camera guy up front's more expensive than the door, so I'm going to go ahead and run into the door, not my camera guy, if I'm going to run into something. I'm going to put it in gear. I'm going to hit clear. So here's this engine running in gear. If there was any misfire whatsoever, we'd have a situation where you'd see a big spike downward telling you which cylinder has the problem. Now, so this test works extremely well. In the earlier days, even with the factory tool, we could not go ahead on those vehicles and do this test loaded in gear, etc. So this is brand new, kind of nice stuff that works extremely well diagnostic-wise. You know, it depends on the vehicle and the scan tool, of course, so you got to have both. So this test is awesome. You can also record it. Anything on this tool, you can go ahead and record it. You can go ahead basically and save it. You can give it to the customer. You can use it as a diagnostic proof. You could ship it to the customer and say, hey, you know, we got an injector on cylinder 4 dropping out. Here's your graph showing that. You know, they know what they paid diagnostics for. We use the top of the line equipment on it, etc. So it's pretty cool. I'm going to stop it. And if you notice, it's showing it recorded. So it's recorded now. I can pull it back up, which is slick. Okay. So we showed you a couple things already that work extremely well. Now, we're not done yet though, man. This thing does some good stuff. I want to get to something else right now. We're going to actually go to, in this particular case now, I want you to look at everything on here. You know, you got brake, you got it all. And I want to show you something that's critically important. We've got new braking systems with electric parking brakes and such. So I'm going to go to brake real quick, and I'm going to go to EPB, Electronic Parking Brake Service Tools, just like the factory Ford scan tool. Here you go. Okay, it's going to load it. Okay, it says it's used to basically perform a range of tests. So there's a range of tests it produces. I'm going to hit OK. When I hit OK, of course, it's going to go ahead and bring them up. Now look at this. This is great. You've got enter for the park brake maintenance mode, and that's where you go into a mode to release the rear electric calipers. If you notice, it says prepare to change brake pads, etc. So that's there. You can check any of the brake applicators. You can apply the electric parking brake. This is awesome. When you're done, you also don't have to go through a procedure of hitting different buttons and switches that Ford offers on some applications to exit the park brake maintenance mode. So what it does is it basically allows you to go ahead and execute changing the pads, completing the job, and resetting the clearance on those electric parking brake calipers. So all this stuff is in here. Pretty slick. You got the brake procedure. You also have bleed, etc. on here. So there's all sorts of stuff available. Seat stuff, you name it. Keys, everything is here. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. We're not going to have time to go through all of it. If you want to, hey, hook up with us. Look at some of the Ford training specifically. You'll see what it does. We just kind of want to give you an idea what these scan tools will do today, man. They are good anymore. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go into PCM quickly here. And you can see we're going into PCM. So we're going to download all the information that the PCM has. And I'm going to go to, in this particular case, first of all, actuation tests. I just want to show you. We're not going to go in through a bunch of these. It takes a second to load because you'll see how many things are loading. If you take a look at it, here's all the bidirectional commands now. Holy smokes. Okay, so you can do variable camshaft timing, actuators, fuel pumps, coolant pumps, you name it, the active air dam up front, etc. But we're going to get out of here for a minute because something really important I want to make sure to show you, and that is read data stream. I'm going to go to read data stream here, and I got to show you one thing that I really like about this tool. It does a great job graphing. In my opinion, it's awesome when it comes to graphing. So we're going to go ahead and pick some PIDs that we might want to diagnose and graph. Now remember, we're loading a ton of information here. So as we're loading this ton of information, we're going to get everything that we can see as far as the data stream under the PCM, because that's what we're under now. Remember, we can do this on any of the modules that have data stream. So here we are at fuel pressure, okay? So what I'm going to do in this particular case now is I want to look at fuel pressure and I want to monitor it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at fuel system pressure, and we want to look at basically the fuel rail pressure. So I'm going to look at fuel rail pressure desired right over here because I want to compare what the computer says the pressure should be at to exactly where the pressure really is. So I'm going to pick basically the low pressure fuel, and then I'm going to pick the rail pressure on the high pressure side. Now I could pick also the fuel pump. I'm going to look at 3 things here. I'll tell you what, we're just going to look at 2 so we don't complicate it, so I can show you what's going on. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go ahead and go to graph in this particular case now. I'm going to turn this one off, and I'm going to go ahead and look at graph, and then we'll work it from there. Okay, so here we go. Okay, graph. And here's our graph. We've got 3 parameters picked right now. I'm going to go to combine. When I go to combine, it's probably one of the best things out there in the scan tool as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to shut off the 1 as far as the fuel pump status. So here are your fuel pumps. Now, if you notice very simply, I've got the low pressure fuel here and I've got the high pressure fuel. If you notice, there's 2 different scales. One goes up to 600, one goes up to 3,000. Obviously, the one that is at 3,000 is the high pressure. So I'm going to go ahead and notice I'm going to accelerate. When I accelerate, notice what happens to the screen. The screen automatically changes its parameters so we can see both on the screen. So we're monitoring and graphing basically the low pressure fuel pump pressure and the high pressure. So I can look at any part of that pattern I want to look at. So it's like having data stream recorded basically on a PID analysis. So you can compare all these screens, you can get a real good look at them, you can do some pretty darn good diagnostics on them. These options are available on anything that's a PID. You can graph it, you can go ahead and combine it, you can look at it separately. It's pretty slick. Now a lot of scan tools, they give you this. Well, it's nice, that they have the ability to give you that, but the problem that we have here very simply is you can't compare them next to each other. So if I accelerate, yeah, it may go up and down, but how far and what and where and etc., you don't know. That's why being able to hit the combine button, as you see, I'm going to touch the combine button. There's your combine. Now I have all of it basically in one place. So I can monitor everything. I can monitor in this particular case if there's a fuel pump fault. I can monitor the high pressure. I can monitor the low pressure. Whatever I want to go ahead and monitor is there for me. I'm going to do something here next that's kind of slick. And this is a little tough. This scan tool has to work its tail off to do this because we have 869 PIDs. So here's what I've got. I've got a car that hiccups once a week. So once a week, the car falls flat on its face. It's hard to get it to duplicate. You can duplicate it if you drive it around 40 minutes up hills. That's what the customer says. So we're going to give someone in the shop, not a technician that we're paying good money for. They got to be fixing cars. We're going to give a driver the scan tool. We're going to hook it up as a technician, and what we're going to do is set up the scan tool like I'm going to show you how to set it up. We're going to hit select all. So I'm going to hit select all. If you notice, it checked every single PID on this system. Every single PID. So now I'm going to hit OK. Now if you notice, it says record. Ooh. So here we go. There's record. So what I'm doing right now is recording all of the data PIDs. So the driver just drives it down the road, and they're going to wait till the car messes up. If it's you driving it, that's fine. The car has a hiccup. Once the car has a hiccup, I'm going to go ahead and stop the record. Now, you don't need to timestamp it or anything, because as soon as I stop the record, all I got to do is rewind the recording just a little bit back, and there's where my problem is. Now, here's the neat thing. You can also graph parameters. Let's say I see that the throttle control system is going away. Well, could be that it lost its 5-volt reference, could be a lot of different problems. So what I can do now is I can pick up to 9 or so parameters. I can graph them all at once. I can see which one failed first. And that's going to let me know what's going on. Now, true story on a car. It's actually a truck. Had a truck, needed an engine, 30,000 miles because the oil was never changed. So the company didn't do so well on their oil changes on this one. So they took it to Ford for warranty work, and Ford said, we're not going to warranty that. So they took it to a shop that has one of these scan tools. And they called up and says, hey, how do we fix this thing? It's intermittent every once in a while. We put a new engine in. It's been to Ford for a month. They can't figure out why every once in a while it shuts down. Well, actually what ended up happening was the AC pressure switch reference went to 0 and caused the problem with the reference voltage that went to the throttle. So that caused the vehicle to basically shut down. So how do we find it? They found it. It's very simple. They graphed this thing. They graphed it for about 6 hours. Graphed all the PIDs. When they had the problem occur, all they did was hold, and I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to press the record button. When I hit the record button, it's going to go ahead and store that information. Now, basically, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So what I've just done is I've stored all of that information. So I can now go back and I can look when that vehicle acted up, what PID dropped out. Slick stuff. So it's a good recorder. Now, how do I find the information? It's real quickly. I'm going to back out of here real quick, okay? And I'm going to go to the scan tool, the main menu. I'm just going to back out. Do you wish to exit? Yes. Okay. Like to end your diagnostic session? Yes. Okay. Now, a couple things here real quick, okay, that we want to show you. If you notice, it says scan history in this screen. Scan history will tell you if that vehicle's been into your shop before. It actually records the vehicle information. If you notice, how many times have I scanned this particular vehicle? There they are. There's the timestamp. I can look at the DTCs every time I went ahead and scanned it. I can hit view record, and I get a complete record on basically where the fault codes were, etc. So you can tell if a vehicle's been in your shop before and look at the record and see what's going on. But I'm going to go a little further here, and I'm going to go over here, and if you notice it says reports. So I'm going to go to reports here, and if you notice we've got all sorts of different reports here. We could go ahead and go to the report section and pull up very simply what we just recorded. Okay, we're out of time here unfortunately today, but we can do that. It's pretty easy to do. Okay, with everything you've seen, you're probably going to want to get a look at this scan tool. So contact Launch USA. We'll put the information on the screen for contact. Remember, there's a lot more training available on different systems on this tool. Go ahead and check into it. We'll see you next time.
All right. Well, that was a great job by Tom going over some of the key features of the tool, specifically related to Ford. So I wanted to talk about one thing first is if you do want to re-watch this video, you can watch it at your leisure. You're going to have to give about 10 minutes or so for it to be loaded up, but it should be. I got that I'm muted, but yet I see that I'm not, at least as I go. Can everybody hear me? Okay. So again, this video will be available to rewatch. You're gonna have to give it about 10 minutes until it's loaded up. One of the other things I really wanted to talk about, there's a couple of things. You know, we get, tech calls into our call center, right? And some of the things that we get, I think are easily avoidable. And I'm not trying to scold anyone or saying, you guys don't know what you're doing, but part of it is that there's a lot of information that has changed and a lot of things that have changed that have been really poorly communicated to you, the end users, and not just from us as a scan tool manufacturer, but from the OEMs. One of the biggest things is how you really have to be connected to the internet nowadays to utilize your tool. Everybody's aware of secure gateway modules, right? And there's models out there that's very well known, right? You got the auto auth registration for Jeep, for Nissan, for Mercedes, right? And that is, where you've got to log in with credentials. You got to log your scan tool serial number in and get authorization and pay a yearly fee, right? Part of it is that all the manufacturers nowadays have a secure gateway module. It's just they do it a little differently, right? So again, you've got Jeep, you've got Stellantis, you've got Nissan, you've got Mercedes going through auto auth, right? Volkswagen Audi uses their tokens. Okay, you got to buy them. We also have a solution for that. You can buy an annual card that gets you in. Hyundai and Kia are going to NASTF. Well, let's talk about like Ford and GM. Ford and GM do it totally differently. In that when you are connecting to the tool, you don't go into the computer of the car first. You actually go to the server for Ford and GM, and they actually call it a handshake, right? So what happens in this case is we register the serial numbers of our tools with the OEMs. So they check to see if this is a legitimate scan tool product, right? Once it is determined that it is, it lets you into the car, right? If you are not online, if you do not have Wi-Fi connection to your scan tool, you can have this denied. We get people, hey, I can't get into this car. Hey, I can't do this. Hey, I can't do this. Are you connected to the internet? No. Your scan tool needs to be connected to the internet. That's one thing. The other thing is your subscription has to be active. Okay. And this is another situation where people get mad at us. They're like, well, I used to, let it go out of subscription and just renew every other year and things like that. This is not a situation where the launch has, tried to screw you and tried to make you do this. This is the OEMs. That scan tool has to be in subscription because, again, that handshake has to happen, right, to allow you into the modules. It's really, really important to understand that. So one of the other things when I think about what could help technicians is, we get, again, these tech calls in, and some of them really easy. Hey, my screen's cracked. Hey, I lost my dongle. Hey, this or that. We help those people out. I'm having little glitches, reset VCIs. Maybe they're actually having a problem where it's actually their Wi-Fi, right? We're checking the speed and we're finding that, Wi-Fi, hey, go in and reset your router. And then we have level 2 where it's a little more in depth. And then we have like level 3 where it's like, hey, I can't do this test. Hey, this isn't working. Hey, this is that. My car's not doing this and this and that. And I'll tell you, I don't have an exact number, but it seems like it's about 80 to 90% of the time we could avoid this if service information was utilized in a more in a more in-depth manner. I got one last week, or it might have been the week before that. The gentleman called up, and I was talking with him, and he had done a rear disc brake job on a vehicle. He had done the parking brake retract with the scan tool, and he was trying to apply it after the job. And he says, it's not working. And to be fair, I have another model tool. It's not working with theirs either. That was my first clue. And very first thing that I did was open service information and look at the procedure. And guess what step 1 was on the factory procedure? You had to step on the brake pedal and then hit the apply button on the scan tool. And the guy wasn't at the car. I said, listen, I'll stay on the phone, walk out to the car, and let's do this. And he's like, oh, yeah, I hear it now. In fact, I could hear the motors on the phone. So it's just a simple matter. I think to myself, how long did that guy waste, right? He probably tried it multiple times. He got another scan tool, probably tried to, do it with that, probably asked 3 or 4 people, right? So, okay. I mean, if you just read the procedure, it would have probably done that. That's one of the reasons why X-431 fix that we have on the scan tool, right, is a direct link to be able to get that information, right? You go right there and it's on the tool, right? You can buy this actively, right? So, you got to, make sure that you're using this information. I was recently on a podcast and it was specifically about automotive training, right? Which is my background. I've been a trainer for General Motors and some other um, big organizations. And they said, what's the biggest difference you see between being a technician now and being one 20 years ago? And the first thing that came to mind for me was, reading service information. 20 years ago, I was a tech, and I pulled the car in and went right to town, right? Start doing things, ripping things out. I'll be honest with you. Nowadays, I read service information. I read description and operation. I think one of the hardest things in this business is to be working an independent shop as an all makes, all model technician. And it's impossible to know everything, right? It's impossible to know everything. So, reading service information and finding the description and operation, whether it's something like an evap system, is the vent valve normally open, normally closed? Yeah, 85% of the time they're normally open, but if you assume, what happens there, right? So that's really, really important, and then reading TSPs. Again, I had another call a week ago, TPMS related. Hey, we've put 4 sensors in this car. No matter what we do, it reads 19 psi. And this triggered in my brain. I said, and I called out the model. I said, this wouldn't happen to be on this make and model. He said, yeah. Yeah. How'd you know that? And I said, there's a TSB actually out for this. It's a program. You need to program that module. That's the problem with it. The one sensor reads 19 psi. No matter what you do, you could inflate it to 150 or take all the air out. It's going to read 19 psi. They put 4 sensors in it, thinking it was the sensor. They did this, they did that. They reprogrammed the sensors again. They went through the whole process. As it turned out, it was a flash of the module, and it was a TSB. Again, X-431 fix can help you out with that, right? Which brings us to module programming. So if you do own a Throttle 5 or a Torque Link, we have an arrangement with Aztec, right? So Aztec is remote programming, okay? Now, it is not a subscription-based service. It's a pay-as-you-go model. So you'll see the Aztec button on the home screen of your scan tool. Again, if you own a Torque Link or you own a Throttle 5. And you can go ahead and you can request them to contact you and then ask them, they'll ask you what you need. They're going to make sure that the vehicle has good battery voltage and a stable internet connection, and then they'll be able to program the vehicle for you. They have all the factory tools. They'll remote into your tool. Or the reason why a Throttle 5 or a Torque Link is required is because as a Smart Link VCI, right? And that VCI will allow you to program the vehicle. Now the cost is about $100 for most domestics, about 125 for a lot of the Asian cars that are out there, and BMW is 175. So not everything's available. People have asked me about heavy duty. People have asked me about some other things. There are some limitations. But you pay as you go. They do have a warranty in case anything happens during the program, which causes a problem. So, it's going to have to be done with that. So those are some of the things that I wanted to address. Again, there is a poll up there. We're going to do one of these trainings every month. So want to see what you guys want to ask for. So, basically, answer that question, and we'll make sure that we tailor the future trainings to what you guys want to see. So I know I've been talking and there's some questions, and I'll try and answer a couple here. So I see Pete Peters said, hey, I see you need a current subscription. What happens when the tool is not supported anymore and I have to spend $5,000 on another scan tool? Yeah, Pete, I understand your frustration, but realize that it's a situation where the cars, and the technology advances so fast that the old tools are basically become obsolete after anywhere from 3 to 7 years. That we have to move on to the next tool. Now, we usually let software updates go for a while, but at some point, we have to we have to move on and to more modern tools. So, and I see Robert says, yeah, it's hard fixing these cars. You need static calibrations. Yeah, there's a lot of things that have to be done. Alignments nowadays require ADAS calibrations on most models. And you do a condenser or a radiator where you take the front bumper off. Yep, there's a radar calibration that needs to be done. They're not making it any easier, but I think how you embrace it is what separates you. I embrace it because it means they need a professional. The days of the people putting brakes on in the backyard are kind of going by the wayside. With needing to retract calipers and all this stuff and things that are being done. So, and yes, Reggie, I see you say it seems they're a trend to force vehicles back to their dealer shops. In some ways, yeah, it's the technology and of course it's really to protect the car owners, right? There's a lot of liability nowadays if you don't know how we got there, right? Um, we got there, through these hackers that hacked into a Jeep, took control of it, were accelerating, braking. Everybody freaked out and thought, oh, this is really a secure issue. We need to work on this. So now the one thing that I think separates launch, and this is where I have to put my launch hat on and really, you know, crow about my company, is we have tremendous relationships with all the OEs. We don't get banned by these OEs. We don't have tests that show up in the tool that the next day are not available anymore because we pirated this or did that. We have relationships. Our vice president of product development is in contact almost daily with a lot of the OEMs. We have the stuff that's available. We have those relationships to keep that open for you guys. And by having those relationships, and sometimes pay millions of dollars a year in licensing fees to these OEMs to make these tools work. So Reggie, we're doing everything we can, with the Right to Repair Act to keep these stuff open. So, right. So I do see, Brad, you have a question. Does Aztec cover module reprogramming? So there's a fee for one, and I believe every module after the first is $75, no matter what model line. So if you have to program a PCM and maybe a BCM, it would be, if say it's a Ford or GM, it would be $100 for the PCM, $75 for the BCM. And if you had to program 5 modules, it'd be 100, 75, 75, 75, and 75. Hope I said that 4 times, right? But Aztec is great. We have a huge requirement with Aztec and a huge relationship with them that is just expanding. So, Charles, I see you asked, you require separate authorization like auto access. Yes, you do. That is Stellantis's thing. That is not scan tool manufacturers. Like I said, all these OEMs are doing it their own way. How they get in. Some of them, it's being active to the internet, and the very first thing you do is contact a server in the cloud, and there's a handshake that happens. Yes, this is a professional tool, not a hacker, and it lets you into the car. Stellantis, Mercedes, Nissan, as I said, they chose to go with auto auth to register the tool by serial number. Hyundai and Kia are going down the world with NASDAQ, so you're going to have to do that. So yes, that is required. But again, that's not a launch requirement. That's an OEM requirement. ADAS training, Mr. Sweeter. Yep, we're going to have that too. We have ADAS equipment. We're going to talk about static and dynamic calibrations. Do you interact with Cummins at all? Yes, Mr. Murphy. So we do if you have heavy duty software, which can be added to our Torque Link, our Throttle 5, and we also have a do-it-yourself tool, the Millennium HD. We also have a product which is the Torque Link based scan tool called the Auto HD Pro. That is where you get automotive, heavy duty, and all the cables necessary, and power sports is also included with that. So for things like that. Now our heavy duty also includes equipment, so maybe bobcats and case backhoes and things like that. So if you work for a construction company, Auto HD Pro is a great tool because you can connect to your equipment, you can connect to your heavy duty trucks, and then of course maybe the owner or the foreman still have pickup trucks, Fords and GMs and Dodges. You still have the automotive software to connect into those products. So yes, we do have all those options. Any more questions? So the one thing that I do want to bring up, we do have a discount code for those of you that want to possibly make a purchase. So at LaunchTechUSA.com or AVI On Demand, use the code AVI10. You can get 10% off a purchase. So one of the questions that we did get in the Q&A, it was sent privately to me, was about buying things online and having them not USA or they're Chinese products. So yes, Launch is a Chinese-based company, but we have subsidiaries in most of the big countries: the UK, Brazil, United States, things like that, right? And we have our own servers. When you connect to a Launch Tech USA tool, it goes to our servers in the USA. If you bought one off the internet from Amazon and it happens to be an Asian-based seller, um, you know, you're gonna have a problem because it's gonna connect to China. So you're not going to be able to get into a lot of these cars nowadays. So you really need to make sure that you're buying from an authorized distributor, that you're buying a USA unit, and that you are connecting to that. Again, it's not a situation where we're trying to do anything nefarious. It's how these cars work nowadays. There are, USA based rules. There are rules in other parts of the world, and it's just the way these tools operate nowadays. Like I said, some things have been very poorly communicated to the end users, and that's one of the things is that when we're going into with the emission laws that the U.S. has are different from what they have in Europe and Brazil and whatnot. So you have to be connected to a server in the country where the car that you have is for it to work properly. So how do you see the video again? You use the same link that you got on this one with. It's going to take about 10 minutes to be loaded up, but you'll be able to watch the video again. Robert says, I have a launch scanner. I like it on 2 Snap-ons before that. Update prices were too crazy. Is that for Snap-on or for us that the crazy prices? So I know Snap-on, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody, but Snap-on really, it's kind of funny. They don't really have a set price structure. It depends on your dealer and dealing with it. I've had people tell me that they wanted $3,000 to update their Snap-on tool, and I've had people tell me it was $400, and I've had everything in between, and I've had people who skipped 2 years who were told that they had to buy every update, and Snap-on comes out with 2 a year, right? Whatever year it is, so it'll be like 26.2 and 26.4 because one comes out in the second quarter, one comes out in the fourth quarter. They've had to buy all the updates that they missed for the last 3 years. Other people are like, no, the guy just let me buy the current one and got me up to date. So I don't really have an answer for you on that. We have a set price, for the updates depending on the tool that you have. Obviously, when it comes to our ProLine tools, the software updates as far as for what OBD2 is getting is, the same, right? The ProLine tools that we sell, it's just the bells and whistles that the tool has, right? It's kind of like buying a certain model car, and you buy the entry level model that has cloth seats and and then you buy the leather seats with the sunroof, and it has a little more things up there that you have to that you're paying for, and that's kind of the way we work as well. So, any more questions? All right. Well, the only other thing I'll mention about the updates just came to my mind is keep in mind that we don't. One of the things we do is our updates are on the tool when you're connected to Wi-Fi. So I really recommend at least once a week, if not daily, going in and hitting that update button. I think last year we had 983 updates on our ProLine scan tools. That's about 3 a day. So tests are added, coverage is added, bugs are fixed. All kinds of things are added to our updates. It's an ongoing, daily thing. All of our engineers are working. When we find a problem, we fix it. You can go into your tool and you can communicate with them and send in a problem. Hey, I'm working on a 2014 Nissan Altima and I can't get the ABS bleed to work, and it comes as a fail. And we found there was a glitch in an update, and guess what? The next patch for Nissan fixes that. So sometimes we don't know unless we get feedback from the end users, and it happens. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to try and hide that fact. It's no different than an iPhone app or iPhone update, and then all of a sudden certain apps don't work like they did anymore. Sometimes a new update causes a glitch with certain other things, and it happens. But we're very diligent about fixing it as soon as possible. So make sure you keep your scan tool updated. All right. Well, it looks like we've reached the end. I don't see any other questions. Thank you guys again. Remember code AVI10. You can get 10% off if you're looking at any other products. Appreciate all of your questions, your feedback. I hope that we added something to you. We'll see you again in May with uh, another training.